I want to tell you of a parade which took place some time ago, said Daddy. After many bands had gone by, many soldiers, and many sailors, a wagon drawn by 4 big horses came along, and upon the wagon was an enormous cage. In this cage were homing pigeons. On the side of the wagon was written a little story about the pigeons, telling how they had taken messages through all sorts of dangers, how brave they had been, how clever, and how they had thought of their duty and not of themselves. And when that wagon passed along carrying the homing pigeons, everyone clapped, for here were little dumb creatures who had shown a wonderful understanding and had done all they could for the country, and the little pigeons were so modest that they actually wondered what all this excitement was about. My story is a very sad and sorrowful one. If I tell it to you it will make you cry, said the letter Z. Alphabet letters don't cry, said the letter S. Tears are shed over us, but we don't cry ourselves. So tell us your sad and sorrowful story, Mr. Z. Tell us the sad and sorrowful story, repeated the other alphabet letters. It shows I have a good disposition, said the letter Z. I'm neither angry nor cross. There, said the letter S. You used me twice in that last word, which was all very well, but you need not have brought in that word angry, for angry and cross mean the same. All right, said the letter Z. I do so little work these days that I really feel as if I didn't know anything. Poor letter Z. The other letters all said, tell us your story, said the letter S. I will, agreed the letter Z. Pray do. The others urged. It's the letter S which has caused the trouble, said the letter Z. The letter S wiggled and wriggled and twisted and turned and said, I beg you pardon, letter Z. I am sure I have meant no harm. None at all, said the letter Z. I know you have meant no harm. And you needn't beg my pardon, for it isn't your fault. You can't rule teachers and parents and writers and students. You do what you can for them, that is all. But think about it, letters, and you will understand. Just think of the number of words which used to need my letter in them and now they have put the letter S in instead. Yes, said the letter M, that is true, and we can think about these things now, for it is recess time. Think of all the words which end with the letters I's. They used to end with the letters I's. True, said the alphabet letters. Perfectly true. You're sure you are not angry with me? Asked the letter S, wriggling nervously. Quite true, said the letter Z. As I said before, it is not your fault. But isn't my tale a sad and sorrowful one? It is, said the other letters. But just then up spoke the letter S and the letter I and the letter E. Letter Z, they said, come and join us or we won't be a word. We need you, letter Z. We must have you. So the letter Z joined these 3 letters and they all jumped around as the word size appeared, as you have doubtless already guessed. You're all very good to me, said the letter Z as it played around with the letters S and I and E. Each one kept its own place in the word, but sometimes they made themselves look very big and sometimes they made themselves look very small and sometimes they made themselves look just about medium size. For, as they made up the word size, and a size can be small size, you know, or big, they did everything they could and played all the games they could. Then other letters formed other words and they played around, just as they should have played to show folks what they meant. You can imagine what a wonderful time the letters F and U and N had. Hurry, said the letter S, all the big S letters and all the little s letters. Hurry now to the classrooms. I don't have to hurry much, said the letter Z, but I will either live to a very old age from being lazy and doing nothing to tire myself, or else I'll be forgotten entirely. Oh, no, you won't be forgotten, said the other alphabet letters. We'll see to that, said the letters A and B and C. We have a great deal to do with schools and lessons, you know, and we will keep you with us, never fear. Thank you, said the letter Z, as it twisted itself slowly back into the schoolrooms. And the letter S said, thank you for not being angry with me. You're a good sport, letter Z. The scissor-tailed flycatcher, said Daddy, is known by such a name because he has a very long tail which is very much the shape of a pair of scissors. In fact, his tail is like 2 tails which open and shut as one would open and close a pair of scissors. He opens and closes his scissor-like tail when he does his marketing just as ladies would open and close their purses after they had bought something. His home is a very large nest, and it is made of anything at all, grass and bits of cloth and strings and bits of twigs. In fact, he is very good-natured. Mrs. Scissor-Tailed Flycatcher has a happy time with such a pleasant mate and she is pleasant herself which makes them both happy. The event of her life is hatching time. When she is sitting on 4 whitish-brown eggs which will soon be little scissor-tailed flycatchers, she is as happy as a bird can be, and that is pretty happy, as you can Imagine. I am going to tell you now about Mr. Scissor-Tailed Flycatcher and his talk to an insect. Little insect, said Mr. Scissor-Tailed Flycatcher, I am very well named. I am called a flycatcher and I catch flies. But I don't only catch flies. I catch other insects as well. But the insect heard no more, for he had scampered away from the flycatcher. Come on, join the band. Rehearsals to begin this morning. Get in practice. Lose no time. We're ready, and we hope you'll be ready too. First practice to start in half an hour. Now the woodpeckers were the ones who had been talking. They were already starting to practice by drumming on the bark of the trees. The trees are the drums and the woodpeckers all beat the drums. Of course, a great deal of the time they work hard at the trees, burrowing for insects, and they help to destroy many bad ones. But some time before Mr. Hairy Woodpecker had suggested they should start a band. The drums were played by Mr. Hairy Woodpecker, Mr. Red-Headed Woodpecker, Mr. Downy Woodpecker, Mr. Sapsucker, Mr. Crested Woodpecker and Mr. Flicker Woodpecker. Those who sang and helped along the chorus and played little mouth organs and various instruments made out of twigs were the warblers, the vireos, goldfinches, mockingbirds, bobolinks, chickadees, peewees, phoebes, orioles, thrushes, song sparrows and whippoor-wills. And of course, almost the most important of all were the robins. Mr. Robin Redbreast was the leader of the band. He waved a little stick in front of the bandstand, which was up in a tree. How they all did play and sing. Now in a great many bands, in fact in most bands, they do not have singing, but in the woodpecker's band it is entirely different. What would a band be like in Birdland without singing? They would miss all the beautiful songsters who would add so much music, and that would be such a pity. So the woodpeckers were wise indeed when they asked the songbirds to join in the band. They practiced all that day for the coming concert. And before they went to bed that night and before they even thought of putting their heads under their wings, they sent around notices to all the birds to be on hand, and this is how the notices read. First concert of the season to be given by the Woodpeckers Band tomorrow at sunrise. Mr. Robin Redbreast will conduct. The concert was a huge success and the people said, it's really and truly the springtime when we have a concert such as we were given this morning. Grace, said Daddy, had a brother named Edward, and Edward was a tease, not a nice, good-natured, funny sort of a tease, but he was the kind who hurt people's feelings. He would see someone who had a suit on which was not new, or which had been patched, and he would try to make the one who was wearing it feel very uncomfortable. Edward would also see boys wearing their older brother's suits, and he would say with a mean look, "Where did you get that suit?" And he also liked to tease Grace by making fun of her doll Gracie and by tossing her up in the air, and playing with her as though she were a ball, and he could bat her in a game of his own mean making. Oh, how she would feel when Gracie was lifted up into Edward's hands, and then he would toss her up and say, "What's the difference? She's only made of rags. Why do you care? Gracie doesn't." One day he left the doll high up in a tree out in the yard, and Grace was afraid that more snow would come in the night and that it would spoil her beloved Gracie, for there had been a late snowstorm that day. But a boy, a friend of Edward's, who didn't think Edward was really much of a boy for teasing Grace in that horrid way, had found Grace crying. He found out what the trouble was, and he got Gracie from the high limb of the tree. Edward didn't know that his friend had brought down the doll, and at night when he slept, lo and behold, Gracie seemed to come and stand at the end of his bed. But no longer was Gracie a little rag doll. She had grown, oh, she had grown. And she was wearing instead of a painted wig, great icicles which were so heavy and cold-looking. Her body seemed very stiff and straight. It seemed very strong, and as if she were made of steel or of iron instead of rags. "Edward," she said, and her voice seemed harsh and terrible. "Edward," she continued, "you left me out in the snow tonight, so as to tease your little sister. But now I will show you what it is like to be abused. Even if you don't actually hurt me, you hurt your sister who loves me. Wait and I will show you." "Oh, don't," shrieked Edward. He was very cowardly when he was going to be teased, you see. "I'll be good, I promise," and his voice sounded thoroughly frightened. "I'll have to show you first," said the doll. She took Edward in her arms, which had grown so big and so hard, and she tossed him up in the air and around and about, so that he was frightened any moment he might land on the ground. And Edward thought of the doll outside. He thought she still was there, and oh, he was so sorry, but he never again made Grace miserable by teasing Gracie. "The vegetables were talking in the cellar," said Daddy, and I must confess that they were boasting a great deal. But still one can forgive a vegetable for boasting very often, for if we lived so near the ground, or in the ground as they do, we'd probably like to pretend we were higher up. The onion was now talking. I came from the land of the pyramids originally. My ancient home was in Egypt, far, far across the water, in a wonderful, ancient part of the world that is full of history and interest and beauty. Here, said all the other vegetables. I myself have never seen that far land, continued the onion, but my family came from there at first, way back where the family tree first starts from. How can you have a family tree when you're an onion and not even a branch? Asked a very plain little potato. People, said the onion haughtily, have family trees, and they aren't branches, nor are they leaves. Family trees mean ancestors, noble grandfathers and aristocratic grandmothers, high-up great-aunts, and snobbish great-uncles. A family tree is something everyone and everything can't have. Now you, poor potato, haven't a family tree at all. But the potato didn't seem to mind in the least. However, the onion went on talking. Now my young friend, the radishes came first from China. An interesting history has the radish family. The horse chestnut family came from Asia, and the mulberry trees from Persia. The cucumbers came from the East Indies, and the spinach family came first from Arabia. How very fine, said the potato in a very sarcastic tone of voice. You're right, said the onion, not noticing the sarcastic voice. It's very fine to have a family tree. It's something, as I said before, that everyone can't have. You never came from afar, Mr. Potato. And neither did the oats, corn, pumpkins and other plain creatures who don't know what aristocracy and grandeur mean. What does it mean? Asked the potato. You weren't paying attention, said the onion. It means a family tree and noble grandparents. Pooh, exclaimed the potato. If a vegetable isn't good itself, it makes no difference where it came from nor what its grandparents were. It's what a vegetable is itself. Suppose I were a bad potato, which I'm not, I'm thankful to say, would it make any difference because my great-great-grandfather had come from some interesting land across the sea? Not in the least. I'm a good useful vegetable and can be cooked in many ways. That's what counts in this world. To amount to something yourself. Be a real vegetable, do what you can to nourish the world. Don't boast. The onion felt very badly. It had been so proud of its fine history, and often it was unhappy because it was so unkindly talked about. I try to be good, said the onion. I season things and I make many good dishes. I do the best I can. Of course you do, little onion, said the potato. But next time you make a speech, tell us all to do our best and not boast about what others have done or have been. And the onion always made speeches after that which were not about family trees, and when it was finally cooked everyone said, "What a nice onion must have been put in this soup." I tried cork biting once, said one bookworm to another bookworm. And yet, said the other bookworm, you are known as the bookworm by some people who don't know much. That is not a great complaint, said the first bookworm, to be called the bookworm by people who don't know much. I love books, but I don't care for reading. That might sound strange to some folks, but the bookworm families know that being a bookworm doesn't mean reading words. Once I went through each page of each book along on the shelf in just the very same spot, so that they could have put a ribbon or a string or anything they might have had near at hand through all those many holes and hung the books up instead of standing them on the shelves. I thought they might care to change the books a little, so I did my best to help. That certainly makes me deserve my name. The wild black cherry tree is very handsome, said Daddy. Its foliage is something like that of the willow, drooping and looking very dainty and lovely. Its bark is rich and soft, but best of all, is the fruit which is used for making all sorts of delicious goodies, especially wild cherry juice. Then medicines and tonics have been made from the fruit and bark and roots of the wild black cherry. Cherry wood is considered by many people to be almost as handsome as rosewood and mahogany, and the old wild black cherry tree is the tree which is used to make beautiful cherry wood furniture. Its cousin, the wild cherry, is greatly enjoyed by birds who simply love to eat the little fruits. Another cousin, the choke cherry, is a tree filled with very bitter fruit, but the birds like the choke cherry trees almost as well as any other and flock about any they may find. The fashionable and rich cousin is the sweet cherry which is cultivated in this country. And these are the cherries which we all like to eat best. How do you feel? Asked the first apple blossom of a pear blossom on one of the other trees in the orchard. Splendidly, said the pear blossom. How about yourself? Never better, said the apple blossom. Now when the other pear blossoms and apple blossoms heard these two talking, they all wanted to see what was going on. And before long they were all out talking and chatting, while some of them were having games with the Breeze brothers, who blew them to the ground and made it look as if the snow had come again. "Did your tree have a secret to whisper to you?" asked the first apple. Blossom. "Yes," answered the first pear blossom. "I was just about to ask you the same question. It's this way with us," said the first apple blossom. "You see, the farmhouse is very shabby. It has been needing a coat of paint for so many years. And the people who live inside are so poor they can't afford anything they don't actually need. They feel badly that they cannot afford to have their house painted, for it would look so much brighter and prettier. Well, it has been this same way for so many, many years, as I said before, and they have had bad luck with the potatoes and the corn every year. Something always happens. Bugs eat up the potatoes, and a storm is likely to come and hurt the corn just when it would be growing quite perfect. All these things my tree whispered and said, 'Little blossoms, all of you must be beautiful, so for one season in the year the people in the farmhouse will think they have the loveliest of homes. Make their dingy home look like a fairyland.' And once again the blossoms gave joy to the people in the dingy farmhouse, who every year had the most beautiful place owing to the blossoms. In a work bag, said Daddy, there lived a button bag. The button bag was made of blue and white cambric, I believe you call it, and it had a blue silk ribbon around it at the top. I suppose a sort of necktie, one might say. At any rate, in this bag were loads and loads of buttons. The button bag was a very large button bag, and the work bag was a very large work bag. Whenever anyone wanted a button, or whenever anyone said they had lost a button or that a button was off, the work bag was taken out and then a button was found, always a button for everything that needed a button. And when any member of the household wanted to do a little mending, for everything that lacked a button there was always found to be one. What did the buttons in the button bag have to say to all this? Were they pleased they were so useful? We shall hear. When is the party going to be? Asked the big, white button, with the shining face. Pretty soon, said the little green button, pretty soon. I've been to lots of parties, said a button with a funny little face, a face of some old knight or lord or something very noble. He had 2 sisters and a brother, and the 4 of them were all just alike. They had never been used, as nothing had ever come up that needed their time and their presence. They had been in the button bag for years. But, of course, they were kept, for there might be a time, no one knows when or how soon, when the buttons with the faces might be just the ones wanted. It's so nice, said the one who had just spoken, that we are always sure of a home. It's so nice. Some would throw us away and would say they had no use for a lot of old buttons taking up room when they were about sure we'd never be used. But we don't have to worry, for the mistress of the house, who owns the work bag and the button bag and all the buttons, always says that we don't eat or drink, meaning we don't cost her any money, and we might be useful sometime. She's a sensible lady, yes she is. And we're sure of a home, quite sure of one. But as I said, I have been to a great many parties. Although I have lived in the button bag such a long time, once I lived on a handsome dress, oh, such a handsome dress, and then I went to great balls and parties and all. Ah, said a big black button, I've had a nice life, too. I've lived on fur coats. I've been on several, and I've been out on glorious bracing winter days when the snow came in my face and body all at once. I've been for sleigh rides where bells jingled and where my button heart leapt for joy. And I, said a little brown button, have on the other hand been about in the summer. I belonged to a lovely bathing suit which belonged to a little girl, and I used to see the sand made into castles and bridges and rivers, and all sorts of marvelous things, and the lovely ocean would go over me. Oh, it was so cool and refreshing. And all about me were happy, smiling people. Everyone was shrieking with delight. If I had known how to shriek I would have called at the top of my voice, if I had a voice. Oh, the button is happy, too, the button is so happy. Well, said the tan button, we must get ready for the party, as we must frolic all night and then be back in our places by morning, so it won't confuse or mix anyone up who may sew in the morning. Right, said all the buttons. So they all borrowed old pieces of ribbon from the bag and little pieces of thread, and they dressed themselves in fine array, and then they danced and sang in their little button voices, which, of course, aren't real voices, but only make-believe ones. This was their song. The buttons are we, happy, gleeful and glad. We are of all kinds and we never are sad. We love those who use us and even those who do not. Ah, yes, indeed, we're a merry, merry lot.